one more blend for good measure. There we go. Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're making flan cake, or maybe flan cake. I'm unsure of the pronunciation because I looked up online. Both were said in different articles of how to pronounce it. So that kind of stresses me out, similar to the whole pecan debacle. So I'm pretty sure it's just maybe regional or whatnot, where some people say flan, some people say flan, and then both sides think the other side's an idiot for saying it the wrong way. So now that I've kind of gotten that out of the way, don't come at me for saying it the wrong way, because I know that there's different ways to pronounce it. You'll probably hear me saying it both ways throughout, so just keep an eye out. The recipe today is also can be called magic cake, as well as Flancocho, which is the word flan, and then the word bizcocho, which is Spanish for cake, put together. But magic cake is the kind of cooler part. Unfortunately, we won't be doing the magic cake method, but apparently the flan layer and the cake layer, you can put in any order, and it always ends with the flan on top. I'm assuming it's just a density thing. But this recipe does say, if you don't know the size of your bundt pan, it calls for a 12 to 15 cup bundt pan. But if you don't know the size, to do the cake batter last and just fill it up to about 75–80% full, and then you should be good to go. So I'm doing that because I'm not sure what size my bundt pan is. I bought it for the Jello salad recipe and don't remember dimensions from it. So we're gonna do the kind of less fun, no magic method, but it will also probably give us some cupcakes at the end, because any excess cake batter can be turned into cupcakes, and that's always a good time. I will note, the recipe does say you can also use a tube pan, but be careful if it has a removable center to not use that, because the caramel sauce that will end up on the top of everything will actually leak out because there's that seam of the removable part. So note, if it's removable center, don't use that. Try and get a bundt pan or a single unit tube pan, and then you should be good to go there. I think that's all of my fun facts for you. So why don't we run through the ingredients and then we'll get into cooking. Sugar, sweetened condensed milk, evaporated milk, vanilla, eggs, cream cheese, and then also a box of cake mix, and then any ingredients that it needs. So for me, it's vegetable oil, milk, butter, and eggs. Obviously, depending on what cake mix you use, we'll have different ingredients. That's what I got. So just look at your box, you should be good to go. So the first step is a bit of prep. So we have a kettle full of water that we're going to put on the stovetop to boil. And we also have our bundt pan, which we're gonna grease here in a second. But also we have this kind of secondary roasting pan that you just need to make sure the bundt pan can fit in, because in a later step, we need to fill this up with water so it has a water bath when it's in the oven. So just kind of make sure you got all of this stuff on hand. So the wrapper that kind of comes from the butter, you might just be like, well, I'm just gonna throw that away, that's trash. But it has a lot of butter still on it, and that butter is really good for greasing things. So just use that to grease your pan. All right, so the bundt pan is nice and greased, and we're good to go for moving forward. And the next step is going to be to take the sugar, put it in a small saucepan, throw that on the heat medium-low, and we're going to cook, just kind of swirling it, making sure nothing burns, and we're going for a kind of amber golden brown color. Now it's time to make the flan layer. We're going to put all of the ingredients for it. So the sweetened condensed milk, the evaporated milk, the cream cheese, eggs, and vanilla, all are going in the blender. Then we're going to blend it until it's smooth, and then we're pouring that over top of the kind of caramel layer that we already have in our bun pan. I am a little worried because I have a Ninja blender, which is not a typical like bottom blender. It has blades going up, which look really cool, but in terms of like smoothly blending something, it's not the best. So if this doesn't work, we'll figure something out. All right, so let's add the ingredients in and start blending. Anytime you blend, always make sure the lid is securely on. All right, let's give this a little look and see if it's all blended up. It seems pretty good. Now it's time to pour this over top of the caramel that we have in the bun pan. It's a good bit of flan, whatever. I'm a little concerned that I have a very small bun pan because it's already pretty close to the top. So, I mean, you can kind of see it from that angle. So we're only gonna have like that much cake. Well, I guess it's gonna then rise. We'll see how it goes. All right, so now that's done. We're gonna kind of set this back off to the side and then get on to the next step. So now it's time to make the cake batter. And you know, sometimes in life you gotta take whisks. And in this case, however, we're gonna be taking this whisk and chucking it because it actually calls for the use of an electric mixer. So I need to go grab that, and then it's a little bit complicated, but effectively just read what your box says and then do that. So I'm just gonna kind of probably do like a ×3 speed through it of me just mixing all that together, and then we'll have the cake batter to then go on top of the flan that we have. All right, so let me go grab the mixer and then we'll get down to business. So the batter is done, and I believe I figured out why it kind of had me do it in like sections and stuff, because there's probably a ton of cornstarch in this mix. And oh, it's tapioca starch. Well, there's also a lot of cornstarch. And so that's very powdery. And so doing it in sections kind of lets it get watered down and like weighed down. So I think that's probably why, because if you just did all of this at once, it probably would have been like a big plume of kind of like mix all up in the air. So it kind of makes sense now. It looks great. I don't know, you can kind of see that. And now we just need to kind of clean up, and then we will add this to our flan cake as the next layer. Now it's time to take the cake batter and pour it on top of the flan, and then we're pretty much good to go. Let's see. So next up is we're taking the kind of roasting pan thing that I have. We're putting the bundt pan in it. I'm gonna kind of push it to one side right now just to make sure I don't pour any water like into the bundt pan. And then we're going to fill it with water. We want it to be halfway up the, I don't like that sound. I don't know what's coming from. It sounds like plastic, but all of that's in there is metal. So we want to fill it about halfway up the bundt pan, which is effectively where the flan layer is going to be. And that is because when you're cooking flan, you want it to be kind of like an even, slow cook. Because if you didn't have this, it would cook quicker at the edges rather than the middle, and just not be a good time for anybody. I'm just gonna put all the water that I have in and call that good. So now we're going to put this in the oven at 350 for 60 to 70 minutes. After 60 minutes, we want to kind of do a toothpick check. So you just poke a toothpick in there, see if it comes out clean. And if it does, then we're good to go. If not, kind of just let it keep going a little bit longer until it passes that toothpick test. In the oven it goes, and then I will see you in about an hour. All right, so we've taken the flan cake out of the kind of water bath, put it on a wire rack. We need to let that cool for at least 4 hours, but they recommend overnight. So I'm gonna do the overnight, and I will see you tomorrow to taste test. I'm excited, I hope you're excited. See you then. I mean, I am blocking that. We have the cake, it has sat overnight, and all we now need to do is put a plate on top of it. This will be my serving dish, and then hopefully it doesn't stick, and when I flip it over, it demolds and is beautifully sitting on the plate. Let's see if that actually is how reality works. What? Right. No. Come on. There we go. I think it's starting to give a little bit. There we go. Ooh. I need a slightly bigger plate, I think. That'll do. That looks nice. And not all of the kind of caramel sauce came out, but that can be drizzled on as needed later. I am pretty happy with that. I think that looks good. I think that looks good. Let's cut a slice here. Ooh. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a nice little division between the cake and the flan. Okie doke, moment of truth. Let's give this a taste and see how we did. I mean, that is fantastic. Or should I say, flantastic. I don't know how many puns are gonna make it to the edit, but I've made a number of puns. So hopefully you've enjoyed those as much as I have, because they are fun. This recipe, super good. It's very smooth, very kind of like, it's rich, but not too rich. Like, it definitely has a vibe of like, I can eat a slice of this, but I'm probably not gonna want another slice. And it's not overly sweet. It's really good. is the correct way to put this. I mean, also there is a lot of the caramel sauce still in the pan. So it might not be sickeningly sweet because I haven't dumped all of that on it. So that could also be a factor involved. Like, I probably don't really need any more added to it, but it is there if needed. In terms of kind of like like time, complexity, and taste time, it took me like 3 hours yesterday, and then it's also overnight. But granted, that's 3 hours with me filming, and I kind of filmed in it takes me longer way of like doing like the head-on cooking kind of stuff. So without all of that, probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half to do all this. It's fairly straightforward stuff. Like, you're just kind of prepping 3 different things and then putting them together. But all of those individual things were relatively simple, which leads into the complexity. I would say not very complex, but it does require some things to be owned. So like blender, hand mixer, bunt pan. So if you don't have those, obviously it's gonna elevate its difficulty, because then you have to go purchase those and stuff like that. Which, granted, it is tax season right now. So if you're getting a tax return, there are worse things that you could be spending your money on. But that is like a little complexity that it's adding. And then taste, I've already rambled quite a bit on it, but it's very good. It is delicious. I'm very happy with that. It's also like intriguing to look at. Like, it has a good, from the outside, it does look kind of like one cohesive unit, but once you cut into it, the cross section, you do kind of see the flan and the cake in different parts. The recipe is easy to make gluten-free versus not gluten-free. I think the actual recipe that I pulled this from is a gluten recipe, but the only thing that has gluten in it is the cake mix. So you just buy whatever cake mix you want. Like in my case, it was gluten-free cake mix, but you could do like any kind of cake that you want, which would be interesting to do like a chocolate cake. I don't know how that would work in terms of flavors, but visually it would create what I was talking about, where it would have like that line going around the outside to kind of signify this is the flan, this is the cake, before you cut into it. So that might be a future experiment, but for right now, I mean, it's delicious. I don't necessarily need to change the recipe, but it's always fun to kind of, you know, try new things. So that could be a potential like future thing. But honestly, right now, it's perfect as it is. I don't think I have anything else to ramble about. I'm just excited to go finish this slice. We'll see if a second slice, you know, is in the future for me, kind of a little treat for me for all this hard work. But yeah, so on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See you.